My stepdaughter's beautiful life was hijacked by a manipulative leech who called himself her boyfriend, and I had to let her lose everything before he dragged me down with them too. Posted by you/Peckerton Detective. I call my stepdaughter's entitled boyfriend Wreck-It Ralph, no relation to the trademark cartoon, just a coincidental naming. He has a tendency to break, ruin, or tear up everything he touches. My stepdaughter, who is actually a sweet and endearing young woman whom I love dearly, has, like many young women with self-esteem issues, allowed herself to be led astray by Ralph. In the year they've been together, she's lost everything, but at 23, she is old enough to learn her lessons without us, her parents, coming to her rescue until she gets rid of Ralph and gets back on track. When they first got together, they lived with her dad and me for a few months. It quickly became apparent that Ralph had a chip on his shoulder when it came to me. He would carry tales to my husband, causing us to argue. Despite my husband telling Ralph many times that it was my house and everything in it was mine, Ralph would keep asking my husband, not me, if he could have this or that, and that's if he even asked. He kept getting more and more animals despite us telling him no more. Neither of them were taking care of the ones they had. They weren't buying dog or cat food or cat litter, we were. They weren't picking up the messes or training the animals, allowing them to tear up our belongings. Marijuana is legal in our state, and there is a dispensary in our town. The only work these two would do was door delivery, her job with a daily payout, just to get enough money for Ralph to make a purchase at the dispensary every day, along with eating at fast food restaurants. Ralph's chip on his shoulder when it came to me was so evident that one night, they brought my husband a soda, walking in the back door right past me, calling out loudly, "We got you a X," his favorite soft drink, to my husband in the living room, completely ignoring me. Another example, my stepdaughter asked if she could use my debit card to get the four of us drinks at a local convenience store on a hot day. My husband and I were unloading stuff from the truck and trailer in the backyard, so I said yes. However, when checking my account, I saw they had spent $20 on food for Ralph without asking. The end came when I told them they had to replace the bedroom door their dog had chewed the bottom out of and refused to allow the pit bull mix they wanted to rescue, even though it had a bite history, to enter my home. They moved to my stepdaughter's mother's home at that point. During their time there, my stepdaughter kept getting tickets in her car, which is only registered to my husband. They weren't paying their insurance, which I had set up for my stepdaughter, paying the startup costs out of my own money when they lived with us, and didn't renew the plates. Now, her license is suspended, and it cost my husband and me $600 to get the plates, again in his name only, unsuspended. Plus, they had damaged the car and it needed repairs. So he took it from them. Before her license was suspended, but after the police took the plates from her car, my husband let her use his truck, which was on my insurance policy. Ralph drove it, even though he has no license, and blew the motor. It is now sitting and can't be used. I told my husband I would put the car on my insurance for him, but only if he drove it. If he returned it to them, I would cancel the insurance, and I've stood by that. Nevertheless, Ralph called daily demanding my husband return the car to them once it was legal and fixed. After 3 weeks, my husband finally said, "Look, you dumbass, I don't know what it is that you think you're trying to accomplish here, but you're not demanding anything from me and you're not getting the car back. I may have originally bought it for her before she got with you, but it is my car in my name, and I'm keeping it in lieu of the truck you ruined. Don't call me again about the car. Got it?" We had been hearing about ongoing disputes between my husband's ex and Ralph. Things got so bad that Ralph told my husband's ex-wife to pack her crap and get the FCK out of her own home. Another time, he told her to shut the FCK up and remember who she's talking to. So we all decided it was time to let our daughter hit rock bottom since she wasn't seeing how Ralph had taken her from being a sweet, lovable, well-liked, and responsible girl in a college nursing program to this person with a criminal history and no prospects at the moment. My husband's ex-wife moved in with her boyfriend, turned the power off at the home she had been renting, and told her former landlord, whom she was actually longtime friends with, that she wouldn't allow it to affect their friendship if he evicted them for squatting, since neither was on her lease to begin with. When my stepdaughter called wanting to come back, my husband told her she could, but Ralph could not. Now they are staying at a homeless shelter in the town where Ralph's mom lives, and even she won't let them live with her. We hate to see her go through this, but this entitled prick she won't let go of has really brought her down, and she can do so much better. This guy actually told us once he couldn't work at a factory that he interviewed at because it was climate controlled and his heart condition won't allow that, then argued with me and my husband that climate controlled meant controlled by the climate, so it was hot in summer and cold in winter. We haven't seen him hold a job or do anything useful or productive since they've been together, just demand from and use the people who love the girl he's become a Klingon to. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. You are doing the right thing but must be heartbroken for her current situation. Curious to know, what happened to all the pets? Ops response. Well, the saddest pet story is the one regarding her beloved Pomeranian that she's had for about 8 years, I believe. My husband had gotten him for her before we met, and she was pretty attached to him. My husband and I were not aware that they could only have one animal there, and naturally, they had to choose his pit mix pup over any other animal. In what I can't help but feel was a calculated move on his part, Ralph convinced her to leave Bumper, who was full-blooded and AKC registered, with his sister, who we feel sold him. When my husband found out where Bumper was, he told her to bring him to us, but by then it was too late, and Ralph's sister was smugly arrogant about they abandoned him. I surrendered him to the shelter. My husband and I both called all the shelters in a surrounding 3-county radius, which encompasses a large metro area in the state next to ours, as we live near the state line, to no avail. No dog matching his description has passed through any of their shelters in the previous 90 days. We contacted law enforcement, but without proof she agreed to take care of him instead of her story of them just leaving Bumper at her place without permission and not coming back for him. It was a civil matter. The 2 cats were given away, and the pit mix pup, he wasn't being a responsible pet owner for and who had no shots, contracted parvo and died. The other pit mix he wanted to bring to my home as a rescue and had a bite history, my husband took to the shelter because I wasn't about to shoulder that liability or risk our homeowner's insurance. I'm a pet lover and have pugs, my husband has a chihuahua, and I cried for my husband's broken heart over Bumper, who I had no issue taking back in for my husband and stepdaughter. However, I do draw the line on pit mixes when one has a bite history and the other chewed through the solid wood 6-panel interior door to their bedroom, which, yes, I ultimately paid to replace after they moved out, along with the flooring. I've never been a cat person, call me a beach and I'll happily wear the title, but stinky litter boxes and cat litter all over the floor, an annoying tail across your face while sleeping, and without the loyalty or alerting protection of a dog, no, thank you. Plus, my husband is mildly allergic, so there's that. Commenter. Thank you for replying, another heartbreak for your family, then. Ralph sounds truly awful, as does his sister. Do you have any way of seeing your daughter on her own just to reassure her that you mean it when you say she doesn't have to live like this? Ops response. I wish. She does call, usually to ask for money, which we don't give. He has her put it on speakerphone so he can hear everything and usually manages to interject himself into every conversation. Her dad has told her he wants a family day with just her, but so far it's not been arranged. Her friends have called us worried. One tried telling her to get rid of him when they were alone in the car one day, and all she did was stare straight ahead out the windshield without acknowledging what her friend was saying. Her dad and I know she knows, but we also see where she's frozen in fear of leaving him. I don't believe it's fear of abuse, I think it's fear of not having anyone and fear of being less than her siblings and peers. Out of my husband's and my children, as well as her mother's children, she's now the only one not committed, settled, and a parent, except her sister from her mom who is intellectually disabled and institutionalized, so this sibling doesn't count in terms of this level of sibling self-worth, even though she's not the youngest. None of us 3 parents, of course, judge her or make her feel inferior for that, but between her low self-esteem and judging herself according to the other kids in her extended blended family, I genuinely feel she won't leave Ralph because she feels he's her last chance. Update 23 days later. Well, we are making progress, anyway. My stepdaughter recently had court in a town 30 miles west of us. They are staying just across the state line in a small city 30 miles east of us. So my husband and I devised a plan to get her alone from him. We said the only car running was the 2-seat convertible and could only take her for her court appearance. My husband picked her up, then I took her to her court appearance, as my husband had to be at the house for something. On the way, she started talking about how she wanted to break up with Ralph but was afraid of the hurt that comes with it. She hated how controlling and untruthful he was but felt he truly loved her and didn't know if the negative behavior was simply from their stressful circumstances. She said once he got SR-22 insurance and his license back, he would be able to work and things would be better. I pulled over, pulled out my phone, and went to the court file website for the county north of us where Ralph used to live. I pulled up 6 cases in his name, 3 to do with driving, with multiple citations in each. The most recent, he was speeding, ran a stop sign, hit a woman, fled the scene, had a suspended license and registration, and obviously no insurance. He was arrested later and had to post bond. In that case, he had $4,000 in fines, plus we had received a letter at our house from the state stating he owed $11,000 in restitution to the woman for damages, and that his license was permanently suspended until the restitution, any related court-imposed fines, and state-imposed reinstatement fee were paid, along with proof of SR-22 within 48 hours of release of suspension by the state. My husband accidentally opened it, it arrived in a stack of other mail, and he didn't look at the addressee. She was deflated and angry, stating they'd talked at length and he never told her any of that, only that he needed SR-22 because he got caught driving without insurance and had to have it before he could get his license back. As someone who used to have my own insurance sales license, I told her no, you can't get insurance if your license is suspended or revoked, at least not in our state. He would have to get his license valid, then get insurance for mandated SR-22 reporting. She herself ended up on probation for her driving issues related to him, with a 6-month suspension and $750 in fines, a lucky break from the judge, in all honesty. She too will have to have SR-22 once her suspension is over. Afterwards, while I stopped at the store to get stuff for supper, Ralph kept calling and demanding she come back. Despite plans to have supper with her that evening, she ultimately gave in to the relentless calls and asked her dad to take her back before I could cook. I did verify that yes, she has an IUD for those that inquired. She was very unhappy with her situation and beginning to see him for what he is, and how in the year they've been together he's brought her down. However, she's not quite at the leaving him point, but hopefully, with any luck, she'll be calling to come home soon. She knows she has a place here with us, but he doesn't. Top/relevant comments. Despite everything you told her, she still isn't at the leaving him point? Genuinely curious, what would he have to do for her to be at the leaving him point? Op's response. I don't know. The fact she is considering it is a move in the right direction, and we are being supportive without giving any money or enabling the situation in any capacity. The fact she now has a misdemeanor from driving as a result of his actions really weighed on her. I told her, without mentioning him, it wasn't the end of the world but that it was meant to be a learning point and she should reflect upon how and why she got it, as well as how to move forward from here. She was receptive. Second update 20 months later. It's been a while since I first posted about my stepdaughter and her entitled boyfriend, and I have had requests for updates. Well, here you go. First of all, I think you all probably know what developed immediately after I posted. Most of you, and myself, nailed it on the head. She was actually pregnant when I made the post and kept it quiet until she was showing, giving her dad and me about 3 months to prepare for our granddaughter. She's a beautiful little girl, with eyes and a smile that lights up the place. She's not quite a year old now. Sadly, my husband was killed unexpectedly when the baby was only 6 weeks old. My stepdaughter and I witnessed it, much to our horror. It has been a very devastating and emotional time since. This may surprise many of you, but she, the baby, and Ralph all still live with me. And guess what? He and she both have jobs now. He is actually a surprisingly good dad. He is still a bit more possessive of the 2 girls than I care for, however, he also knows he will never have the pull and manipulation over me through my stepdaughter that he tried with her mother and my husband, so he knows his limits. Neither of them has a driver's license, and I do not routinely taxi them to work or back. They are adults with a child, but I will take them or pick them up on occasion. I let them know I'm proud of them both and want to see them succeed. And by the way, Step has been differentiated for these posts only. In real life, neither my husband nor I ever use Step when referring to our children and grandchildren. His kids are mine, just as mine were his, and that will never change. I will always love and be there for my stepdaughter and granddaughter as her parent. Even Ralph learned I had his back on an incident I knew was not his doing or fault but for which he was wrongfully getting blamed. When my husband was killed, as she and I sat stunned in the ER with his body, Ralph was the first family member through the door to us, still in his work uniform, having come straight from his job, falling to his knees in genuine tears and pulling us both into a tearful group hug as we all cried together. I give credit where credit is due. But here is our update, bittersweet, unexpected, and not at all how I, or probably most of you, would have thought things would pan out. Even the entitled Wreck-It Ralphs of the world do, sometimes it seems, have the potential to turn themselves around and begin to resemble normal, productive, team player people again. It's not perfect, but no one's life is. It's a damn good start in the right direction for them, at least. And I'm grateful to still have them in my life too. These last months would have been worse without them. Editor's note. Op made a post that has details about his husband's death. Here is a summary from a commenter. Commenter. If you read it, it's long and graphically describes his bloody, battered corpse. If you just want the full summary without graphic details, he believed he was having a heart attack, so an ambulance was called. It took 9.5 minutes to arrive, time that Op covered in 2 minutes. The paramedics were allegedly flirting and made him walk, even though he said he couldn't. They loaded him up and, supposedly, began examining him, but no one was inside the back with him. He called to tell him which hospital they were headed to. Op said he was leaving now but had to stop for gas. His mother, who was in the car listening to the scanner, suddenly shouted that they had to pull over because he was in cardiac arrest. Op rushed to the hospital but learned he still hadn't arrived, so he went directly to the ambulance. They had apparently spent 45 minutes there, with police and fire present, before all heading back to the hospital. At the hospital, they waited 10 minutes before calling Op and his stepdaughter back and informed them, in a busy hallway, that he was gone. Then, they immediately opened a curtain to reveal his body, which looked as though it had been violently beaten. He was still breathing, which made things worse. They were being told he was dead, but his body hadn't fully shut down. They were billed for many life-saving drugs and told it was a widowmaker heart attack. However, that condition requires a 100% blockage, and he had functioning stents that made that physically impossible. Op requested an autopsy, but it was initially blocked, and he had to fight for it. The toxicology report showed the only substance in his system was an overdose of methamphetamine, while they repeatedly mentioned fentanyl. He didn't do drugs and was especially afraid of fentanyl, he wouldn't have taken it willingly. The paramedics provided only a short statement. The coroner agreed on a widowmaker heart attack. But the full autopsy showed no signs of that. Instead, it revealed numerous major injuries to his face. The heart attack was actually a minor spasm, fully treatable. It occurred over 20 minutes after they would have reached the hospital had Op driven him himself, leaving him with ongoing guilt. There is no documentation of what happened in the ambulance. But the physical evidence from his body disproves the official story about how he died and what was administered to him. Despite this, the coroner refuses to amend the death certificate, which still lists the cause as a widowmaker heart attack, cause unknown.